Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Lecolona, and this is Nashville. Does it bring joy, and can it impact the community? That's the litmus test for Soccer Moses, a.k.a. the Handsomizer, a.k.a. Stephen Mason. Outside of Nashville, he might be better known as the lead guitarist for one of the top Christian rock bands of the 90s, Jars of Clay. But whether he's playing on stage cutting hair or dressed in a full Moses costume, he's always trying to figure out how he can bring his and use his exuberance and his platform for good. I'd like to welcome Stephen Mason, a.k.a. Soccer Moses, back to This Is Nashville. It's good to see you, Stephen.
Oh, good to be with you, Khalil.
Thank you.
Yeah. What a boy! I was trying to. Yeah, were you talking about me there earlier?
Yeah.
It's exhausting thinking about all these. One of my old bandmates referred to me as a hat on a hat on a hat. I think a lot of it's just maybe this is an undiagnosed ADHD thing, but man, I love a side gig. I love a side gig. I think it's, part of the expression of creativity.
Yes. Creativity also comes in costuming. Can you describe to us what you are wearing right now?
Well, right. Yeah. Per request, I'm wearing the OG Soccer Moses getup, I believe, which you can order from online retailers at one click. It just started as this silly joke that a friend, JT Daly from the band Paper Out, made about a soccer player over the World Cup. Victor Moses was his name, and he scored a late winner. Mm-hmm. And JT said, stood up on his chair in this pub in Ireland and yelled, "Let my people goal." And I think he drank for free the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But he told me that joke, and I thought, man, that should be a shirt or something. And so when we got our Nashville SC franchise with the MLS, I thought, man, I should totally wear the T-shirt. And then I realized, no, we got to step this up one level further. And bought a Soccer Moses costume to the first match, and the rest is lore.
You're parting the defense.
Indeed.
Of the other team.
Oh, man.
So that Nashville SC can score.
Indeed.
I mean, look, if Notre Dame has touchdown Jesus, Nashville SC needs Soccer Moses.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of fits. We're here in the Mid-South. It's kind of it plays well with a lot of narratives here. I'll say that.
All right, so tell me this. What's the big thought on your mind these days?
Boy, I think with the state of the world, which is a lot to say in one breath, what I've realized is that they say a lot about the locality of the things that we can have impact on. Like that's whatever's in front of you. Whatever, in recovery circles, they talk about, this is my hula hoop. What's in my hula hoop? That's what I have. That's how I can affect change. I've been thinking about those things and especially in terms of, the Handsomizer barbershop and going to matches of Soccer Moses and doing music and such. It's about creating spaces to interact with folks in person and experience and joy together, because that is I think one of the greatest invitations we have as humans to draw together, is to say, hey, this is fun, or hey, this is silly, or hey, this is a beautiful thing. Let's look at it together, or let's laugh together, or let's take a picture of this moment. I think that's what, as you said in the intro, the litmus test is joy for me these days. And as I get older, I'm approaching a half century.
All right.
Life starts to look a lot different, and he says with a fake beard and tunic. It's the joy is the litmus test. It's, going to be helpful.
Soccer Moses, why is this persona so meaningful to you? What does it mean?
It's I think maybe it's a little redemption. It's a little bit of, deconstruction journey joy, like the idea that I could dress up like someone who belongs at a vacation Bible school and be slamming a beer at a soccer match. There's a lot to it, but and I think too the persona, just there's such a tie to plagues, and also offsetting that with really questionable and janky leadership in the lore. I think I just connect with that on a lot of different levels because it be like that sometimes, and I think to have a caricature that is supposed to be prophetic, but also, as I say in my byline, reluctant. I think that's a very human experience.
Is it safe to say that soccer is your favorite sport?
Without a doubt, and I didn't grow up with it.
Okay.
I'm from the Midwest. We threw things, baseballs, football, basketball, so I think I'm constantly enamored with the sport and the way that it really does. It really does ebb and flow. It's like a symphony. It's a beautiful game, as they say, where you just can't take your eyes off of it, because the moment you do is the moment something moves and shifts. And I've been compelled by the stories, and it's magisterial. It's magical.
What does it mean to you that Nashville has its own MLS team?
It is the culmination of a lot of hopes. My barbershop is right across the street from the stadium, and I think not being in England, where we love the Premier League and love supporting, but having our own team and our own group of supporters. It's another playing out of this idea of joy and community, because I think that's one of the things that the sport does maybe better than any other. It's not an individual identification with this. It's we, that you hear, especially in England. We're learning it here now too, but they refer to it as our club, our town. The early days of Nashville Soccer Club, it was our club, our town. There's something powerful about being identified that way, but in a way specifically that says everybody here, all walks of life, all cultures, all races, tribes, tongues, people groups, are welcome in this space. And the joy, the level of joy, especially you think about the end of the matches, La Brigada, which does a lot of the drums, one of the supporters groups, they're just dancing. And this is sometimes regardless of the result. That's just the response, and that's rare, I would say, in
celebration of being able to be at a game. I've been to quite a few Titans games. Actually, I've been to 4 Titans games. So maybe I shouldn't show up because they haven't won one that I've showed up to. And when people are leaving, it's usually a sad and solemn atmosphere.
No, you're right. It's like, well, we didn't get him today. Yeah, and I think there is something to the sport too, that there is such a thing as winning, even though you drew, even though there was or as we would say, a tie. There's still joy in knowing that we fought hard and we managed a point. You can experience that a little bit with the Preds too. They're like, well, we were playing neck and neck with a team that maybe should have beaten us, or that our team, and then there's also just the unpredictability of some days, the boys in goal just go off, and there's multiple goals, but it's all kind of coming back around to, but we were all together in it.
You've been able to use this character, Soccer Moses, to give back to the community, right?
Yeah, that as we said about the litmus test, the first concert at Geodis Park was Guns N' Roses. No, second concert, yes, Shania Twain and then Guns N' Roses. And it occurred to us, like, what if we did a Nuns and Moses tribute, and a cast of rotating axles, which got Kira Smalls from Sid Gold's and Diana DeGarmo, all these amazing talents, Bree Kennedy, all these amazing talents in Nashville as rotating axles, and because I love a pun,
yes,
and we're able to kind of transition that into work with Yazoo, the microbrewery in town. They made a Let My People Gold beer, and a lot of the proceeds from that went to Kicking It 615, which gets young kids that don't have access to soccer opportunities the opportunity to play, and then we just love Nashville Humane as well, and so Soccer Moses has had a chance to do the dog fashion show. It's just what even I think, and this is something to go back to our band Jars of Clay and Bloodwater Mission, or Bloodwater now as they're known. The work we did in sub-Saharan Africa with clean water issues and the HIV/AIDS pandemic, it's to say that whatever it is you love, whatever you're passionate about, that can be. I don't want to say it the wrong way, but you can basically employ or utilize that to ends that it brings about change and good things for other people, and that's. And I think that shifts the conversation about, thinking, well, I don't have what it takes to do X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, if you just have an idea and you let it rip and you tell people what it's about, they will rally, because I think at our hearts, I continue to believe this. It's hard, but I want to believe in the best intentions of humanity to love and serve one another and see each other as equals.
Okay, so it's extra time in a match.
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
Tied.
Yeah.
What is Soccer Moses doing to influence the crowd?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's funny. Beforehand, I do a little, a sine wave thing to get people kind of warmed up. Just, a prelude or a call to worship or whatever you might call it. And, at the end of a game, I have to say, we're in extra time. It's tied. I'm probably not unlike the legend of the actual Moses. I'm probably cowering somewhere behind someone. It's just it's gut wrenching, this sport. But again, and it's like the Ted Lasso episode. It's the hope that kills you. Like it's so true. It's like, but this is the human experience, and the more we care, the more it hurts. So it takes a lot out of you for sure.
You ever wear the beard around the house?
Just when the wife asks. No. Actually, these days she's reading a lot of elf fantasy stuff. So I've been putting on my elf ears.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. It's funny. Early days when we were at Nissan Stadium, I would walk from East Nashville dressed as Moses and just make the pilgrimage down to the stadium from the east side, and the honks and the stares and the confusion. It just, I think that's part of what I value in the character and in this sometimes painfully growing city is we gotta keep it weird. We gotta keep it interesting, and let's keep being a curious place to be.
I'm sure as you were walking to Nissan Stadium dressed as Soccer Moses, traffic parted for you.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk with Stephen Mason about his career as a musician and his days with the Christian rock band Jars of Clay. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Nobody Trashes Tennessee, the state of Tennessee's official litter prevention campaign, managed by TDOT. Details on how to be part of the solution to end littering at NobodyTrashesTennessee.com.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. My guest is Stephen Mason. Some Nashvilleians know him as Soccer Moses. He's a super fan of Nashville SC. Others know him as the lead guitarist for the Christian rock band Jars of Clay. Steve, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, so we're going to go back in time. When you were in college, you started a band, Jars of Clay.
Yeah.
And it took off shortly after you graduated. How did the band come together? What was going on?
We, it was one fateful year of college, and then off to Nashville to see if we could do this thing. And that was 1993, 94. Met Dan, Charlie, and Matt. There was just a common thread of we wanted to make music that asked good questions, and also we were taking from all these random. Well, for us, they felt like random influences. PM Dawn. There was PM Dawn over here because we loved sampled music.
Okay.
And kind of the reharming of like melodies and things that Prince B did, and but then combining that with a love of like just good old rock and roll and pop music and Beatles and James Taylor, a lot of folk elements, Jonathan Brooke, The Story. We were all over the place, and I think we wanted to find some sort of expression that was acoustic in nature, but still had some sort of contemporary sound to it.
So you listen to secular music, although you made Christian rock. I was in college in the 90s, and I can't say Christian rock or Christian hip hop was on my radar back then.
No, nor should it have been. It was. In the harsh light of day, I think you'd say that it was a lot of marketing more than anything. That there were some bands, some artists that if you maybe remove that moniker from the front of the music, that would have maybe in some cases not given them a platform at all, and in others it would have given them just a regular old mainstream opportunity to move people. Because this is 30 plus years in reckoning, and almost 50 years in, being raised in the church, and now with adults that I raised, it looks a lot different. It looks a lot different because I think the fundamentalism of a lot of that was more about who's in and who's not in, and I think the journey I've been on is to open the doors wide and really celebrate ultimately all of humanity in that conversation. And I think that's where the band arrived towards the end, when we were asking questions of what does it mean to be human and also have these spiritual aspects to our lives as we are imperfect people. What does it mean to do good in the world and to fight against things that we see are wrong, and to address it all with compassion.
Well, a lot of times on people's first projects, it does encapsulate that innocence.
Yeah,
these are songs that people have maybe been working on for 10 plus years.
Right, your entire life. To that point.
These ideas, and no one has heard you. Then you present them, and suddenly it's this fresh new perspective, these new views, these new stories and melodies.
Yeah.
Then things change a little bit.
Yeah.
With the second record and the third record and so on. What was it like for you all when you blew up? Like, what was the first time you remember when you realized saying, wow, I am famous now?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had stopped and been able to get more breath and take in the experience. We were at, it was kind of at the height of the record business as it as it slowly changed, with
Napster and everything.
Napster and LimeWire and all. Yeah. So that we experienced kind of the heights of all of that stuff with, show up at this thing and do this deal and the payola and trying to get your song on the radio. And and I think too, for the first time as a kid growing up in the Midwest, like I think I got in one fist fight maybe in 5th grade, but I don't like to make people angry. And all of a sudden we weren't enough of this or we weren't enough of that. Like I remember we were playing, we played, it was a street festival in Minneapolis. And so it was just, it's regular old kind of street fair. And it was us and the Screaming Trees and I can't remember who else, but there were agitated people in the audience who were like, you gotta preach, you gotta this is your moment, and we're just like we're a band, and so for the first time I think I experienced like there is so much that comes with being identified as part of these things, and when people have their claws in you, they have expectations, and it gets kind of transactional that way.
Tell me about the moment when you decided to use this platform that you had to start raising money for charities.
Oh man, well, I think that was probably 10 years into the band's life, and we were not home a lot, and I think missing a lot with our young families, and I think. Well, initially it was on invitation, going over to the continent, some different countries, and seeing what's actually going on with clean water issues and the HIV/AIDS pandemic. But we were invited into a conversation, and I think realized that if this kind of making music and touring and all of the exhausting schedule of that, and not seeing our families as we'd like. Let's make this mean more than just trying to sell CDs and cassettes and T-shirts, and that's on a very transactional level. But I think too, we got to hear the stories of transformation and how people in these countries wanted to change their communities, and how we could come alongside them and help see that too. Come to bear, and then it started to bleed into the music and what we were starting to talk about. Moving away from that innocence and those simple expressions of trying to figure out what our childhood kind of religious upbringing looked like, and now realizing, okay, at this point in our life, we're the table is set for us to really lean into the things about the world we see aren't right, and write about them, and talk about them, and have a conversation, and try to develop with Bloodwater, especially on-ramps into so-and-so lives in the middle of Illinois, soybeans and corn. Like, what can I do? Like, but get them on-ramps into those conversations to realize that, that the common earth of humanity is what draws us into these difficult things, and it also brings so much joy.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil A. Kulona. My guest is Stephen Mason, a.k.a. Soccer Moses. He's also the lead guitarist for the Christian rock band Jars of Clay. All right, so there's a lot of pressure that comes with being a cultural public figure, especially in Christian music. You're expected to not just display certain values, but believe certain things. As you mentioned to us earlier, you were expected to actually preach while you guys were, proselytize while you're performing.
Right.
If you waver, your fans may resent it a little bit. How did that pressure manifest?
Well, yeah, it has financial implications, right? Because, especially if you've carved out just this area, that if you say the wrong thing or that you feel like, or that the audience feels like goes against, what they believe you believe.
Yes.
Then that's gonna cost you. And when you're on the road, and raising family, and I mean it's it's tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky, and I think, I think we learned a lot of hard lessons, and also at a certain point, I think, it helped as we got older to realize that if you're profoundly affecting some people's lives in terms of the conversation, and you're also making other people equally as irate about it, you're onto something.
You make everybody mad.
Yeah.
Or happy.
Yeah.
Something else that's hard. I mean, I think about, like, not a lot of groups stay together for 30 years. Only group I can think about that from my college years who's still together was De La Soul. They lost a member a couple of years ago due to Trugoy passing. But, you guys in De La Soul, the ones who are sticking together from the 90s.
Yeah.
Have you talked about that? Talked about where your lives are drawing you as individuals and how you're evolving there?
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting thing, because one member's doing more movie writing, and I share the studio next to Santa's Pub, where my barbershop is. Two of the guys are writing and doing independent artist production, and I think one of the beautiful things of this is that we have continued to generally just be advocates for one another's success, and I can confirm what you said, that being in a band is a great illustration of that, disagreeing and still being together, and I think part of that point of arrival has to do with understanding that these are small issues. The greater meaning here is found in this beautiful thing we get together. We make when we get together, and I think that's. And at a certain point, though, I totally get how some people are like, you know what, I don't want to be beholden to this person anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very natural, and there is a seasonal aspect to creativity, and I think that's an important thing to bear in mind as well. That. I'm not looking at anybody specifically, but maybe it's time for some folks to not make any more music. I don't know.
Hey.
I mean, maybe
it's time for some folks to stop and some people to start. I agree with you there. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll talk with Stephen Mason about his work as a barber in Nashville. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for prep and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. My guest is Stephen Mason. He's a local legend. Since the late 90s, he's been the lead guitarist for the Christian rock band Jars of Clay. He's also known in sports circles as Soccer Moses, the unofficial mascot of Nashville SC, Music City's MLS team. He's also worked as a barber and is the owner of the Handsomizer. Stephen, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the early 2010s, 20 years after making music, the band Jars of Clay decided to stop performing full-time. Did you know what you were going to take up next?
That was no, in short, no, and that was a terrifying and I'd say pivotal moment for me personally and our family, and because I've only known one thing, and I feel very fortunate for that thing, but honestly, to look at vocation and kind of the sanctity of vocation, and how we derive meaning from what it is we do in work and in life. I wasn't sure what that was going to look like. To be in the session game in Nashville is quite a hustle. Outside of that, I wasn't sure what else. In music looked like what I had been doing, just in an ancillary fashion, as a sideman or something else. So I immediately went to friends and family and just kind of said, what do you see? And wonderfully, my wife was up for kind of that conversation in some really helpful ways, and I just settled on, I don't think I want to be a therapist or a counselor, but I feel like a lot of the creative work I've done equips me for understanding story elements and being with people. And that's where barbering just kind of popped up as, oh, it's a creative art, it's personal, it's about presence, and it's about being with people and building community, and it just ticked all those boxes. And I quickly, registered for barber school, and next thing you know. Yeah.
Interesting. You're saying this about 20 years of performing live. You guys no longer are. It sounded like a lot of professional athletes when it's time for them to retire.
It fits. It fits because, do they go into broadcasting, or other things? They still orbit that. And I think for me, I needed a little bit of a break, because as we talked earlier, that being the main hustle. And I think a lot of the dynamic conversations around, serving an audience and serving the people in the band, and I think it became time for me to cut my own swath of creative culture, and barbering has just fit.
Talk to me about the magic of a barbershop.
Well, initially it's a one-chair barbershop, the Handsomizers, and I didn't realize how important that was or how that would play out until, I got a few years in and, would just by happenstance have, a guy who had just come from a therapy appointment, and his wife said she was leaving him, and he was disheveled, and we had some moments of weight and some moments of lightness, and he left feeling, on some surface levels better about his hair, and he was able to receive a little respite, and folks that had suffered great loss or had experienced great joy, people that have died. I don't think I knew the level of intimacy and interaction that I would get from that. But it really is about stepping into that space, me and another person, and just setting a table for a conversation, and trying to be obedient to the moment. And so there's a lot of truly reading the room, and trying to figure out. Do people need quiet right now? Do they need, do they need My Bloody Valentine, or do we need to watch, the Premier League? And maybe I force their hands most of the time on the. We need to watch soccer right now, or The Price is Right. But
It's a great show.
Yeah, trying to get a sense for what people come in there for.
So given this, from playing this joyful character as Soccer Moses to playing music for people all across the world and having an effect in the charity that you all engaged in and the mission of this creativity and your arts, how do you define impact?
Boy, I think it's such a wonderful question, Khalil, because how does a person change, and what does it mean to make a difference? Because I think I don't know, part of me feels like we know it when it happens. We know it when it descends on us. We know when we experience it. I think at the very at some rudimentary level, if it gives us pause in the busyness of all the information we now suffer, anything that gives us pause to consider, maybe there's more, maybe there's something different, maybe there's something that I've missed, whether that's in my life personally or vocationally or relationally, that if it gets us to contemplate a third way in many conversations, I think that looks like impact. Now, obviously, you can look at the work with blood water, and when you deliver clean water to a community, you see impact. Mm-hmm. Like you see these things, very very obvious. But I think, especially with barbering, and maybe sometimes with even the music, and you put it on a record and you send it off into the world, people's experiences of it, it's more subtle that way, or more slowly unfolding.
Stephen Mason is a Nashvilleian. He's the owner of the Handsomizer, also known as Soccer Moses, and the lead guitarist for the band Jars of Clay. Stephen, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Clint.
And thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced and directed by Emily Siner. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi, with a lot of help from Josh Deepin. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation doesn't end here. Comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. Also, you can find us on the socials, Blue Sky, Instagram, and X at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Kaliole Colonna. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody, and be good to each other.